Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Becky, I will go ahead and hand it off to you. And if you need anything, let me know. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat. For those who don't know, Sasha will also be helping out in the chat as well. So if you do have questions and we can't get it into the conversation, hopefully Sasha will be able to give you a hand. So, Becky, the show is all yours.
Thank you. Right, just want to make sure that you're able to see the screen which says Web Proxy.
Yep, we got the presentation up. You're good.
Cool, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Charlie. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon where you are globally. Thank you so much for taking the time. The initial part of the session is going to focus on Web Proxy. I am Venki Krishnan. I'm the product manager at Palo Alto Networks for Web Proxy. And with me, just a slight correction, with me, my partner in crime is Mubin Alam, who is a senior technical marketing engineer. And together, we'll just walk through a quick presentation on Web Proxy.
Thank you for the clarification there. My apologies to everybody on that one. That was my mistake.
No worries at all, Charlie. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. So the idea for us is, overall, at Palo Alto Networks, our focus has always been on building a really comprehensive security solution. Now, regardless of where the end user is going to be, so as far as for customers are concerned, right? So the users can be at HQ, working from office, large branch office. A lot of times these days, there are folks who are working from data centers, small branch offices. Should not be a problem. Now, given the hybrid nature of the workforce, a lot of users are also working from home, coffee shops, etc. So my point is, regardless of where the end user is, similarly, as far as the destination that they're trying to access, it could be the internet, it could be applications which are hosted, say SaaS apps, it could be hosted in data centers, etc. Now, regardless of where the apps are as well, our focus has been to go ahead and provide a comprehensive solution where you end up protecting all of the traffic that flows through. Now, over the last decade or so, where there's been a lot more emphasis, I think well over 70% of traffic on any customer network is web-based, focusing on 80/443 or HTTP, HTTPS. Our capability has also evolved where all the capabilities that we have built, where we end up focusing on whether it is advanced threat prevention, advanced wildfire, advanced URL filtering, all of these capabilities have evolved to focus and protect a lot more on the web traffic that flows through. So I wanted to start off with this general introduction, right, in terms of what we've focused on over the last several years. Now, as we started talking to a lot of customers, we realized a few things. The biggest takeaways were, one of these or all of these three, right? First one is there are a lot of customers. It could be focused on specific verticals. It could be, say, the financial verticals, BSI, that is banking, your financials and insurance, where you have very strict compliance requirements, governance requirements, and where you need to have a proxy in your network. Your network is built in and around a proxy. Sometimes ends up translating to NIST 853's a no default route kind of an architecture. Because of which you need, there is a mandate to have a proxy in your network. Now, the second aspect is, when we started talking to a lot of these customers, one of the other biggest feedback was for some customers who said, hey, we are willing to go ahead and move away from proxy-based architecture to a non-proxy kind of an architecture. This essentially involved a large architectural change. And here is the information that we got, right? So you had proxy in your network for 10, sometimes even 15 years. So, and this is you've had your networks working at a global scale across the world. And when you end up migrating, the headaches that you could be presented with are, hey, what if a few servers or a few users are affected? This essentially translates to downtime for you, and that creates a lot of project management headaches. So this was the second issue that got highlighted. The third issue is a lot of legacy proxy solutions are not cloud friendly. By that, what I mean is, with a lot of focus being on cloud these days, not just from an application standpoint, but also you're looking at SASE, you're looking at SSE, where everyone is essentially looking to have some kind of cloud presence. Even for that matter, from an auth standpoint, there is cloud presence, right? You have IDP, the SAML auth, etc. And legacy proxy solutions are overall not very cloud friendly. With that, what I also mean is a lot of times it's not like saying, oh, the legacy proxy vendors do not have a cloud solution. They tend to be disparate solutions. Okay, you have a solution that involves cloud, you have a solution that involves on-prem, where they are not exactly a hybrid solution. Those are the problems that we wanted to focus on. And based upon all this feedback, we said, hey, why don't we go ahead and build this capability and make it available to customers? The other big thing that I wanted to highlight was one of the biggest differences that we found was between your proxy and your next-gen firewall. You essentially end up using all of the capabilities, all of the functionalities, whether it is your URL filtering, you're doing sandboxing, you're doing file analysis, you're doing IDS, IPS. All of the capabilities are essentially the same, with one big difference in terms of how traffic is onboarded from clients. Now, with the next-gen firewall, you're essentially looking at a stream-based architecture. Traffic flows through. You essentially end up analyzing. That's one architecture. With proxy-based flow, you'll end up terminating your TCP connection from your client on the platform that is sitting in between, and setting up a new TCP connection from this platform to the web server. So with all this feedback, we said, why don't we end up building proxy capability on the next-gen firewall platform itself, and use this as an onboarding mechanism. So with this, what it does is, using one platform, you can still continue using all of the subscriptions that you have, whether it is all the way from advanced threat prevention, advanced wildfire, advanced URL filtering, the DLP, CASP capability, all of those capabilities, including IoT security. You can use it regardless of how the platform is deployed, whether it is a firewall, whether it is a proxy, or a hybrid solution. You have proxy and firewall, right? You can use in any of those modes. So real quick highlighting, with this capability, we can now do explicit and transparent proxies. And as I said, the focus has been right from day one to build a solution, a capability that works really well and is cloud friendly. With that, what I mean is, from day one, we've made sure that this is a very complementary solution that works very well with Prisma Access. So Prisma Access has multiple deployment modes, multiple capabilities available. It will work very well with the next-gen firewall deployed as a proxy, or proxy is the net new capability, or the next-gen firewall as well. And the focus has been on, since the focus has been on SASE, the SSE, with this integrated, the hybrid capability, you should be able to use, say, for example, your pack file. If you're on-prem, that is, by on-prem, what I mean is, if you are in the office, you're using a pack file, your traffic will end up going in through your next-gen firewall, where the proxy capability has been enabled, and all of your security functions can apply. If the same user ends up moving over, working from home, you can continue using the same pack file. The pack file will be able to dynamically detect and say, hey, you're no longer in the office. It will end up sending the traffic over to Prisma Access Explicit Proxy. In terms of management, all of the management can still happen either from Panorama or your Strata Cloud Manager. You will have consistent set of security policies that end up applying. And as far as the end user is concerned, they should still consistently be protected from any kind of security issues. Let's dig in a little more in terms of what kind of form factors are available, and as far as the migration paths are concerned. So I just touched upon the fact that from a management standpoint, there are two options that are available. A lot of customers today end up using Panorama in terms of management. So right from day one, we wanted to make sure that the capability was available and configurable from Panorama itself. So it should not be a problem to go ahead and set it up, configure, manage, troubleshoot. All of these capabilities are available from Panorama. At the same time, we've extended the capability to be available and supported from SCM, or the Strata Cloud Manager, or our new cloud management platform. Form factor standpoint, we support this on right today. It is available on 4th gen shared MPDT platforms, which is essentially the 1U rack units, right? Which means the 1400s, which is the 1410, 1420s will end up supporting it, the 3400 series and the 5400 series. By 5400 series, the F series, what I mean is the 5410, 20, 30, 40, and 5445. Those are the platforms where proxy capability, functionality is available. In addition to that, highlighting the fact that it is also supported on VM series. I know I've highlighted this as the minimum requirement is a VM 300 or a VM 300 equivalent. It is available with flex licensing as well, where we need a minimum of 4 vCPUs to go ahead and support the capability, the functionality. And as far as migration paths are concerned, as I said, this is a web proxy, which means any kind of web protocols will be supported. 80443 should not be a problem. You'll be able to proxy it. You can still use your platform for all other ports and protocols. So your firewalling capabilities are still going to be available. And this is being built to go ahead and work very well with Prisma Access as well. So you can continue using your pack file, GP, should not be a problem. It should be a seamless use case, seamless migration. Let's go a little deeper in terms of the capabilities it's in itself, right? Management, I just spoke about that. Connection methods, as I said, two modes that are available. Your explicit proxy, which is pack file based. We will support both capabilities. That is, if you want us to host the pack file, no problem. We can absolutely do that. If you have an infrastructure where you're hosting your pack file yourself and you want us to support that mechanism, should not be a problem. So we'll support both modes. Digging a little deeper in terms of explicit proxy, there are some auth requirements on the explicit proxy side where we support Kerberos as an auth mechanism along with SAML. We have introduced some more capabilities in terms of auth bypass or auth exemption. By that, what I mean is in your no default route architecture, say, for example, you have devices that cannot respond to an auth request. You have, say, for example, printers in your network or say IP cameras in your network. For such devices, we do have a skip auth or an auth exemption mode where you can essentially go ahead and specify, say, source IP address or destination URL or a combination of these two to go ahead and send the traffic and still maintain your no default route architecture, right? So these are capabilities available on the explicit proxy side. Likewise, on the transparent proxy side, we've designed it to make it as transparent as possible to the end user. By that, what I mean is we have not mandated needing any kind of authentication for transparent proxy. That's one. The second aspect is, since the proxy capability was developed and built on the next-gen firewall, and the next-gen firewall typically usually sits inline as far as all the traffic flow is concerned. So the way we've architected the solution is you really don't need, say, your complex, you're using your ACLs, your route maps, your PBRs, etc., to route traffic onto the firewall for transparent proxy, since it already is sitting inline. And there is no need for WCCP as well with our transparent proxy use case. So I wanted to highlight these aspects. Protocol standpoint, as I said, works on HTTP, HTTPS, should not be a problem. Decryption profiles, you can use. So one of the good things about the way we have built the solution is each capability is modular, where your proxy capability is independent of your decryption capabilities. So your decryption capability can essentially, you can continue using all of the capabilities, functionalities that are already available on the platform with web proxy. So should not be an issue. Lastly, to just wrap this up from a security subscription standpoint, you can use any of the subscriptions that are available, whether it is advanced URL filtering, advanced DNS security, advanced threat prevention, advanced wildfire, no problems. At the same time, your SaaS inline, DLP, all of those capabilities will still end up working with your web proxy, which is available on the next-gen firewall platform.
Fantastic, Venki. Yeah, there was a question in there. It looks like you answered it from Andrew about the does the proxy perform the TLS decryption? You already answered that basically. Chris was wondering, is the proxy supported on the PA3260? You said the entire PA32 series, correct?
It's the 3400 series. So a really good question. Clarification in here, the 3200 series happens to be the third gen platform. It does not have enough horsepower to go ahead and support proxy. So it is not available. Okay, I should highlight two things. Thanks for bringing this up, Charlie.
Sure.
So two things. From PANOS standpoint, we've made this capability available from PANOS 11.0 onwards, which is our Nova launch. And from a hardware platform standpoint, it's not available pre 4th gen. So your 3rd gen boxes will not support proxy, mainly because it doesn't have the horsepower. So it's available starting 4th gen only, and starting with the 1400, 3400, and 5400 F series.
Fantastic. Good clarification. Then one other question, Robert was asking about he wanted to get some more explanation on the traffic profile that you mentioned.
Traffic, okay. Okay, so overall, in terms of how you end up defining as far as your security policies are concerned, you can still continue using the exact set of security policies that you have available under the policies section, right? Your NAT, your authentication, your security policies, your decryption, however you have it defined available on PANOS, you will absolutely be able to go ahead and use it in exactly the same fashion without any changes. So whether it comes down to whether you're looking to go create your profiles as far as your URL filtering is concerned, or DNS security, or say threat profiles are concerned, define it exactly the same way, and you'll be able to go use it in your security policy. And maybe to emphasize a little more, as Mubin does a demo, a walkthrough of the whole setup, maybe we can focus a little more to help clarify this for you.
Fantastic. Yeah, okay. We will go ahead and let Mubin do that then. And there was just one other quick question then of, is there support for SOX proxy today, or is that in the future?
Not at the moment, but if you do have some requirements, please connect with your SE. Let's sit down and talk in more details about from a use case standpoint. What I want to highlight is typically so far from what we have seen and interacted with quite a few customers, we've seen that SOX overall, there are typically, I think, 3 protocols that end up using SOX or are defined under the SOX pedigree between FTP, SSH, and RDP. Overall, the platform will be able to go ahead and protect when those protocols are being used. The only thing that we don't support is proxy capability for those protocols. So let's sit and talk in more detail. Connect with your SE. Happy to connect and talk in more detail.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Moving further on. So essentially, this will be my last slide before I turn this over to Mubin. But I want to just wrap this up by saying, what are the potential benefits for you as a customer, right? First one is when you have all of these capabilities, a lot of feedback that we got was, hey, a lot of customers use that have proxy also have a next-gen firewall. And I think the big thing that started working for us was, why don't we end up giving you a consolidated platform where you can still be in compliance requirements? That is, you want to continue using proxy, go ahead and do that. You want to continue using next-gen firewall, absolutely go ahead and do that. Make it available on one box in itself, right? So a consolidated platform where we want, it's not like we are, by consolidating, we are taking away your deployment options. No, we are still continuing to go support all of the deployment options, whether it from a proxy standpoint, next-gen firewall standpoint, and also from a SASE SSC standpoint, right? Where our focus is on from Prisma Access, if you have GP, if you have, say, pack files, all of those capabilities will still continue to work. We are looking to make all these options available and give the flexibility to the customer in terms of how you want to go deploy this, consume this overall. And ultimately, the idea is helping lower the total cost of ownership from customer standpoint, right? Whether it is any kind of, say, your carbon footprint or any kind of rack space that you need, or overall in terms of what vendors you end up working with, troubleshooting kind of issues that we've seen over the past weekend, etc. Right? So consolidating everything and doing this to lower cost for customers. I think that's kind of the biggest goal for us. So that was my last slide. I will pause here to see if there are any other questions.
Yeah, we did have a couple other questions. Is there support for reverse proxy now, or is that in the near future?
Great question. All the capabilities that I've spoken of so far is for forward proxy only. Reverse proxy, not at the moment. Yes, it is a future thing for now. But if you have use cases, again, same thing, connect with your SE, please reach out to us. I'm happy to sit down and discuss this more with you.
Okay. The other two quick questions then were, how is web proxy different? How is web proxy different, or is it the same as SWG?
Again, a really good question. We kind of end up using it interchangeably, depending upon who you talk to from an industry standpoint. But the idea is, from a platform standpoint, we end up supporting all of the capabilities, all of the functionality. So it's more a case of semantics at this point in time.
Gotcha. And then the last question we had, like I said, I'm sorry, there was one other one. Will the PA 5450 modular support this in the future?
That is a roadmap item. Again, not at privy to talk about it on this call. But again, if there is, if you have a requirement, please connect with your SE, reach out to us. Happy to sit down and talk to you.
Okay. And then the one person was just asking for a clarification question is, when you were saying PAC file before, were you referring to PAC file?
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
Yeah. So there you go, Scott. That was what he was saying there. So yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
And the demo should confirm that use case as well. Sorry.
Fantastic. All right. We'll let you hand it over to Mubin then.
Okay. Cool. Great questions. I will stop sharing and I will turn this over to Mubin.
Mubin, the show is all yours.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Let me just start sharing my screen. Hold on. Oops. Window there. Right. I hope you can see my screen now. So
yes, we can.
Welcome everybody. So I'll demo. Thank you. I'll be presenting the demo for the Explicit Proxy configured on a PAVM 300. So my setup consists of a PAVM 300, which is our virtual platform, and I have configured it with an Explicit Proxy configuration using Kerberos authentication. I have two users over here. One user is configured as CD as MALAM in the user domain that is going to be authenticated through Kerberos, and we have another client which we can use for authentication bypass. So it's a server which does not which needs to be bypassed from authentication. Let's think of it as a headless device. The PAVM is also connected to an authentication server, which is the AD Active Directory server, a Kerberos auth server. And we have a local DNS server over here as well for the Explicit Proxy to validate its DNS queries. The setup is managed by Panorama, but we are going to the way I'm going to show you is going to be on the PAVM only. Traffic enters through Ethernet 1/1, which is in the client zone or the trust zone. It leaves out from Ethernet 1/2, which is the internet zone or the untrust zone. And there is a loopback interface defined for the proxy zone. The traffic flow is going to be from a user traffic coming in through Ethernet 1/1, and it terminates on the proxy zone. And then the proxy initiates traffic again, and it goes out through the internet to the internet. Through the internet zone to the internet. Okay. So with this, I'll go over to the PAVM configuration first. So this is the PAVM. It's running PANOS 11.1.2, or latest PANOS at the moment.
Mubin, we're just still seeing your slide, just so you know.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No problem.
Yes, I intended to share the entire screen, but all right. So,
We see
so
it
this
now.
is the
You're good to go.
PAVM.
Yep.
Awesome. So this is the PAVM, and it's running PANOS 11.1.2. And the way we configure explicit proxy on the PANOS is that first thing first, we'll make sure that our networking configuration is in place, starting with the interfaces. So Ethernet 1/1 and 1/2 are defined as layer 3 interfaces over here, and they're defined in their respective zones, the client zone and the internet zone. The loopback interface that we are using for the proxy connections is loopback.100, and this is the IP address we saw in the diagram as well, and it's defined in the proxy zone. Under virtual routers, we have defined a default gateway to point to our upstream router. And then we define a DNS proxy so that the explicit proxy can choose the DNS servers that it has to use. And this way it can validate that the domains are resolving correctly. And we can also define our DNS proxy configuration over here. The DNS proxy also requires an interface specification. Typically, it's a loopback interface. For this purpose, we're using the same interface that the proxy is going to use. So all DNS queries are going to be initiated by the proxy interface. One other aspect that is required before we move to the proxy config is the authentication configuration or authentication profile. In this case, I'm using Kerberos Auth. So I've defined an authentication profile. This should come up. And this is defined with Kerberos. And there's a Kerberos key type that I have uploaded. With all of these settings, we will now move to the proxy configuration, which is quite straightforward. So the first thing first is that you can choose the type of proxy you're configuring. By default, it's going to be none if you've newly licensed the PAVM. But then you can choose explicit proxy or transparent proxy. So we are choosing explicit proxy here. And then under the explicit proxy configuration, you can choose the listening interface. By default, in general, it's going to be the interface that the traffic is entering through. In this case, it's Ethernet 1/1. That's where our traffic is entering. And then the upstream interface is the interface that the proxy is going to use, the loopback 100 in this case. Proxy IP is the IP that the users will be pointing to for the explicit proxy. And it's going to be the IP that is assigned to the listening interface. So in this case, it's going to be 192.168.1.1. This IP is also defined. This IP also we have also defined a domain for the proxy, an FQDN for the proxy, proxy1.cdsscd.com, which is also the same IP. Since we're using Kerberos Auth, we'll rely on the domain name for the client configuration, as we will see later. Then we also have the DNS proxy that we defined, configured over here. We have a checkbox, which is a security checkbox designed to protect against TLS evasion attacks. So it can check the domain and connect, and the SNI are the same in the HTTP request. The authentication service type, we have 3 choices over here, either as Kerberos or as SAML. Since we are setting up Kerberos, I've chosen Kerberos Auth. There's also an authentication option available depending on your setup. Then the authentication profile we define as bound under this, depending on what we choose. Yeah. Okay. Now, once the explicit proxy is configured, the last step remaining is the security policy. So just like next in firewall flow, you will be defining the security rules in a very similar fashion, except that source zone for those rules would be the proxy zone in this case. All the CDSS subscription service or the security subscription services such as advanced URL filtering, advanced DNS security, advanced wildfire, and all of those security services, they're also equally applicable over here. So in this case, I have bound an anti-spyware profile, vulnerability protection profile, and a URL filtering profile. I have also defined a NAT policy so that all the traffic initiated by the proxy or by the clients gets netted to the same IP address going out. And then I've also applied decryption policies. So I have bypassed all the financial, government, health and medicine websites, for example, from being decrypted, and everything else gets decrypted when it's reaching out from the proxy to the internet. I think that's it about the configuration that is required. Authentication. One more thing is, if you have a headless device that needs authentication bypass, then we also add some authentication policies where you can bypass web proxy authentication, either by the source IP or by the destination URL category. So in this case, I bypass by the source IPs. Now, this basically just concludes the configuration on the PAVM required for the explicit proxy configuration. Now we'll move on to the client device. So this is a Windows client that I have. And on this, as you can see, I have run a DNS query for proxy1cdsscd.com. It is resolving to the 192.168.1 address. And that's the domain that I've added under the proxy configuration. I'm using manual proxy config in this case. I could have also used a pack setup, but for this setup, I have configured it manually. The listing port is port 8080 for both HTTP and HTTPS. And now I'll go to the web browser and just send traffic to some site, let's say yahoo.com, for instance. The site loads, and just to confirm that it is indeed going through the proxy, one way to check is the security certificate. It should have gotten decrypted. And as you can see, the certificate is issued by the Palo Alto CA. So this is going through the PAVM, and now we can also look at the logs to see how it shows up over there. So in the monitoring and traffic logs, as you can see, we have traffic initiated from the client, and the source user is cdssct/malam, which is a user that authenticated by a single sign-on with Kerberos. And if you go to URL filtering, again, we can see that the user went to yahoo.com. There's a bunch of URLs that Yahoo has opened, but the referrer you can see is Yahoo. From zone, proxy zone to internet zone, flow type explicit proxy. So this will basically show you if the URL is allowed or if it was blocked. In this case, it was allowed through. Lastly, authentication logs. This can show you that the user was successfully authenticated using Kerberos auth. And with this, I would like to conclude my demo. Please, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Fantastic. Yeah, there was a couple of quick questions. Are the PAC files hosted in the cloud or directly on the on-prem device with the proxy function enabled?
PAC files, well, if you're using SAML auth, we can host them in the cloud with Prisma Access. Otherwise, you can have your own server, local server, or any location where you can host a PAC file. It could be a local web server that you have, or an internet location, depending in AWS, depending on wherever you would like to.
Okay, fantastic. For description, do we still need to get the firewall CA cert in the client workstation certificate store?
For decryption, yeah, you will still need to make sure that the certificate is trusted by the client. So the certificates that I'm using for decryption, for instance, in this case is the trusted root CA has to be added over there. So I added this certificate. Basically I added this KRB_cert as a trusted root CA in the client. This is very typical for any decryption scenario for proxy.
Okay. When you were showing the logs before, does that show the real client IP instead of just the proxy IP? Can you see both?
Yeah, you can see both. So the logs are going to show the source IP of the client over here. You can also see the NATed IP when it goes out. And to see that it is coming from the proxy, you will see that the source zone is the proxy zone.
Cool. And then the last question, at least at the moment that we have so far, is does it support XAuth?
It's
I can
it
take
supports
that.
Yeah.
I can take that, Mubin. So not at the moment, but we do have the plumbing done, where we end up integrating directly with CIE, and if CIE ends up say adding more auth mechanisms, at least we have the plumbing done in place. But again, for this ask as well, please reach out to your SE and have them connect with me, and we can definitely discuss the options here.
Fantastic. Let's see, we did have another question. Is the loopback address redistributed into the internal network?
Well,
my guess would be
not
no
necessarily. I mean, sorry?
I was like, my guess would be no on that, but.
Yeah, so not necessarily. It depends on your configuration. So there can be scenarios where you might want to just listen on the loopback interface itself. In that case, you would want to distribute the loopback to the internet network. Otherwise, all you need is the listening IP address, whatever you specify over here, which would be this the IP on the listening interface. So the listening interface is Ethernet 1/1, so I use this IP. If there's a scenario where you want to use the same loopback as the listening interface, that is also supported, and then you can distribute the loopback IP into the client network.
Okay. One of the last questions we have there is from Andrew. Does anyone have an easy way to get firewall CA cert onto unmanaged endpoints? He's in a university environment, so lots of unmanaged endpoints. I'm going to go ahead and take that and suggest that you actually look into bringing that up actually in live community itself. That's the perfect kind of place to go and ask that kind of question, see if you can get peer help from other people. Personally, I wouldn't mind. I'd like to learn about that a little bit more myself. I've had to do the same type of thing in the past as well. So I'll be very curious to see about that. But live will be your best bet, at least at the moment, for getting that question taken care of. One last question before we wrap up here then is, can we do load balancing of web traffic only via pack file like we did in case of traditional proxies?
We support a pack file. So if the pack file you can do this load balancing, then it's going to be supported. Or you can also use a load balancer, layer 4 load balancer with this as well.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so what we'll do here is we'll go ahead and wrap up. Venki, Mubin, did you have any other comments or anything or any questions you wanted to ask the rest of the group?
Yeah, no, I think this was awesome. I think we got some great questions. Thank you so much. Keep the questions coming in. We can certainly look at the fuel group to see if there are any other questions. But overall, thank you so much for your time.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.